You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 30 of Storyteller Conclave, a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game you can, whether you're a new storyteller, or a dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. Hi, I'm Rob.
I'm Sarah.
Hey, Sarah. Feels like forever,
It does feel like forever.
but it's kind of a happy time,
It is a happy time.
like a hopeful time.
A thankful time.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
I think all those are appropriate for this lovely show of hope we have.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to talk about a mood that rarely comes into storytelling. Like, it's weird to say it, but hope and thankfulness and like the edge of joy, isn't really a lot in stories. Like, stories are about challenges and we talk about, consequences and conflict and obstacles and all these things, but we don't talk about what's on the other side.
Yeah.
How do you get to there? Like, what drives you to there?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you handle when it doesn't seem like there's a possibility?
I mean, there's a prevailing theory that drama is born from conflict, and I think a lot of times when we think conflict, we just think toil. And pain and hardship and such like that. And that certainly does set into contrast. The deeper the darkness, the brighter the light can be.
Right.
But does it always need to be so dark?
Or does hope always need to be something that is just the horizon?
Right.
I mean, we see movies, like, I get the vision. You know me, I'm a cinematic person.
Yeah.
So, when you think that things are lost, you look for the light, and when the light shows, you're like, oh, we've made it to the dawn.
Right.
And that's part of hope, is knowing that the dawn is going to happen. And I think that's almost challenging to portray in stories.
It is.
Because you can't, in a written story, I can make a character be hopeful. I can give them hope and show that they've got a glimmer of hope in their mind. But how do you get players to recognize that hope is there? How do you show thankfulness truly without it being insincere or
transactional?
Exactly. Or worse yet, that it's cynical.
Yeah.
And that just around the corner is, something ready to stab them for that joy.
Yeah.
I think that's what we need to talk about tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the time for it, I think.
Definitely.
That and eating lots of food, but that's like tomorrow. So,
but trust me, you do not want a 1-hour ASMR podcast of us eating mashed potatoes into our microphone.
You might, but that is not this podcast. That is not this podcast.
Kate's already given us the rundown on the mixing the mac and cheese on the podcast.
Yeah, we're not doing that. I can imagine the sounds in my headset right now, but I'm not going to totally do that.
So we're going to focus on the thankful part of Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So, like, when I'm thinking of hope, when I'm thinking of stuff like that, I'm thinking of it from a perspective that is not the antagonist. It's not always about the defeat, but what it meant. So, a lot of times when you're thinking of, like, the players are the hope for the story. How do you impart that to the player? And sometimes that comes off from characters, in this, NPC characters in the story asking for it or seeing them as hope. Sometimes you create a savior of the story. One of the good examples was in our D&D game when we showed up in that town. You had all of these, people who were literally had just been excised from their own city because of a troll, and suddenly there are now heroes showing up to help them. And there's this glimmer of hope in their eyes now.
Like, oh, thank goodness you got actual mercenaries from the Fighters Guild of Anvil, and they're here. Yeah.
You still had people naysaying, like, we don't need them. We can do this ourselves. Like, well, then go on in. Yeah, I didn't see you running in there, Targ.
Right.
Swinging your woodsman's axe at that troll, yesterday or the day before that. In fact, I think I saw you in your tent wallowing in your bowl of mutton, Come on, dude. But that's the thing is that you use those, I will say they're the pros to the protagonist. They are the shining examples of society asking for help.
Yeah.
And giving them that reason. And then those turn into that turn at the end. They're the joyful ones at the end. Like at the end of that story, we were easily welcomed into their homes. Even though there was nowhere else to stay. The inn wasn't a place to stay. There wasn't enough rooms. There was a small town. But families let us stay with them. They gave up places for us to stay in.
Yep.
Whether it be their own beds and they slept somewhere else in the house, kind of a thing.
Even that night was a night of revelry for them. It was the first night they were finally able to go back in their town after you had vanquished the troll that had moved in there.
Yep.
They even made it a village wide holiday.
Yep. Which would probably spread from there.
Yep.
At some level. And I think that adds a sense of hope that you've done something. You've made a change. And I think in stories where you have that, where it's more of a less of a clock, dialing you to your death, which a lot of times that's the case.
Yeah.
It's more of a cog. We've moved one step further ahead. We're one more length of rail down the track. We're at the next stop. We've moved ahead. And I think that's one storytelling style. The other one you brought up, which you've said multiple times, and I think you really explain it well, is failing forward.
Yeah. So I think a lot of kind of where I wanted to go with this discussion has to do with modern media's kind of obsession with gritty realism. You see shows like The Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Black Mirror, Altered Carbon, just to name 4 off the top of my head that are all just grim.
The world sucks.
Always just the world sucks. Everybody's a bad guy. Even the good guys are just bad guys waiting to betray you.
Yeah.
There's no happy endings for anybody. There's just inevitable ends that may be further down the road.
Yeah.
And honestly, I stopped watching Game of Thrones because of that. I stopped watching Walking Dead because I realized after 2 seasons, I'm like, none of these characters are going to get a happy ending.
No.
There's never a light at the end of this tunnel, and I had to stop watching.
Yeah.
It was depressing me. So, what I suggest is, for just simply for creating your mood, clear the grit out of your reality.
Yeah.
So you mentioned failing up. Failure doesn't have to mean someone dies. Doesn't have to mean that someone gets hurt or that there's a bad consequence or now that there's a new horrible thing you have to deal with. Sometimes failure, you can you're jumping across a ravine or something like that. Or you're going to tumble out the edge of a ravine. And you have to make an acrobatics check to see what happens as you careen down this hill towards the edge of this cliff. And okay, you fail it. Well, maybe instead of having you fall off the edge of it and take 47d6 worth of falling damage as you break yourself on those jagged rocks, you grab yourself at the very edge of it, but like one of your prized possessions falls over the edge.
It's a consequence.
Yep. And you know what? It's a character building thing because you're going to be griping about that favored pair of boots or your foppish hat that you bought in the last town that you were so proud of is now flittering down the ravine, and you have time to watch it because it's just caught the air and just kind of flies down until it hits a gust and whew, it's gone.
Out of sight.
And your character, it's no great loss to you. Like nobody died.
Right.
You get to continue with your story.
Yep.
But now you're like, damn it, I love that hat.
Yeah.
Or it becomes a kind of a plot thing for you.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is I like the Emperor's New Groove, the bridge going out. You failed your check, the bridge went out, you're falling.
Yep.
You guys catch yourselves, but when you climb up, you're on the same side that you started at.
Right.
This is the only bridge for 3.5 miles.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is the next major town. Crap.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got to go down to that town. And it's, rainy and nasty the whole way there. And you gotta work your way around. And now you got to deal with what's going on in that town. So it creates its own mini adventure, a consequential adventure that costs you time, that costs you energy, may cost you resources and money or equipment.
We spoke a little bit about adventure, the Tales of the Aeon Society a couple of episodes ago. And that's one thing that they do a lot with like the dramatic editing sort of stuff in there, where it's like if you, sure, you could fail, but if you spend a point of inspiration, you succeed, but maybe there's a consequence to it,
right?
And I think Dungeon World does that quite a bit too.
It does. Dungeon World does that. 7th Sea allows you to fail but still have successes, meaning maybe I need to have one success just to succeed at my act, but there's also consequences. Maybe I take damage, like I'm trying to get through a building that's on fire.
Sure.
And while being chased by guards. So my action is to get through this room. So I have to at least get through the room. So that's my first success. So I'm going to use, my acrobatics to tumble and get around things to get through the room or walk on walls or whatever my special ability is.
Right.
And that's going to be my theatrical way out. But when I roll, I only make one success. But one of the things in the thing that I can get out of that room, I may have to get through the room, take damage, but one of the side things might be that there's a writ in the room. And if I get that writ is going to give us something to the future. So I may say, I'm going to take that writ. Okay, well, you've taken fire damage.
And you're not out of the room.
And you didn't make it out of the room. So you didn't succeed. So what the other players see is as they're passing through the room, you get through to a certain point and timbers fall in front of you.
Yep.
And they hear you say, go, I'll catch up. And they move on to the next scene. I'll be back with you soon.
And as you look around the room, searching desperately for another exit, you don't find one immediately, but you do see something on the desk.
That's the thing is that you do grab the writ and stash it into your thing just as the fire wraps around you a little bit.
Yep.
And then you walk away from that scene. And then 3 scenes later, you come, that night into the tavern coughing, covered in dark soot, wrapped in a burnt blanket, all your clothes damaged, your weapons gone, barely, fingers still singed. And they're just like, are you all right?
You lost everything. Not everything.
And you reach in underneath everything and braced against your body, still leaving an outline against your chest, is the writ. The seal, almost dripping wax still onto your chest, and, well, it took some of the hair. As you pull it away from yourself. That's the kind of thing where you have a consequence, but you succeeded. But it's something.
Yeah, you're still able to glean a victory from it, and not everything has to be a huge disaster.
Right. And I like that. That's one of the things I like about 7th Sea is that it's not about dying to stupid things or failing to stupid things or roles or whatever. It's about succeeding even marginally against consequences and graces, and that the only time that it matters is when it really does matter.
Right.
So, black and white characters, I think, are important as well. If you're wanting to be hopeful, you, much like being crazy, you have to lay the groundwork early. Have your characters be black and white. Have your villains twirl their mustaches and clearly be villainous. Have your, non-villain NPCs who are heroic type people themselves be thankful and jolly and forthright and
decent.
Yeah, normal people.
Right.
I mean, there's something to be said about gritty games and noir games where everyone is gray. The world is gray, the people are gray, everyone has struggles, everyone's going to do something to get by. The guards at Gotham prison can be paid off because they have lives and children and they're not paid nearly as well. And if the Joker just pays 9 of them to give up their uniforms that night for his men, they'll do it because, it's better than dying when they assault, and I think that's a beautiful thing in itself. But at the same time, like you have to know that that's what your players are expecting. But if that's not the story, if the story is not gritty reality, don't force it into them that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make it pretty obvious that this person is Like, don't make them do intention rolls every single time. Wait, I'm doing an insight check on this person to see if they're a decent person.
They're a shopkeeper selling you potions. Like, yes, but these potions might be poison. Well, I mean, they might be. There's a non-zero chance of that. But
right. But the chances are like that they're poisoned are probably because of a mistake that his kid kicked over something in the middle of the potion box,
right.
Kind of a thing, but that I don't think that should be a thing. I don't think it should be constant.
Exactly.
And the player, if you're, and I'm sorry, this is just me. If your players are constantly wondering if the next NPC they talk to is going to stab them in the back, either A, you're doing dark, gritty film noir proper, or your storytelling side may need a little bit of a tweak.
Yeah.
Like, we need to talk.
But I think more than just having like your NPCs just be like, thankful and decent and mildly altruistic and stuff like that. But I think like having inspiring leaders.
Oh God, yeah.
As a
truthful, honest.
I mean, we all talk about the big bad evil guy, but what about the big great good guy? Who is the king of your land, or the, is everything an awful evil mega corporation, or are there maybe like altruistic scientists out there trying to do right by everyone who just legitimately want to see society succeed and grow and be peaceful and happy,
Yeah.
Is there a leader, maybe even like a general in the army who's trying to diffuse the war rather than rattle the saber?
Right. Who's done with battle.
Who is a good and honorable man.
Yeah.
Who would never harm an innocent and things like that,
That right there is neat because you talk about that, and that is the lawful villain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw that and I was just like, that is cool. I'm going to let you run with it because I love it. I really do love it.
So what we tangentially mentioned TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as a role-playing system, based around the Palladium system.
Yeah.
And I think Palladium probably did alignment the best I have ever seen.
Yes.
In any game system.
Scrupulous.
Unscrupulous. Yes.
So
there was they didn't have the typical everybody kind of knows it D&D grid system of lawful, chaotic, neutral, and good, neutral, evil.
Right.
They had kind of the same thing. There was 8 alignments in it. They did not have a true neutral, because they did not believe true neutral actually existed. You had to have some sort of a moral bent to you.
A lean, if you will.
Yeah. They believe basically true neutral was reserved for robots and robots only. And because everybody else has some moral leaning to them.
Yes.
You might only be slightly chaotic, but you're still chaotic.
Yes.
So out of the 8 alignments, what they did was they broke down. First off, they gave them names. So it wasn't like lawful good.
Right.
It was like principled.
Right.
And
better terms, honestly.
Really better terms, yes. In fact, I may actually just like pull out the books for you guys for our game and just ask you to kind of go through and just write one of those on your sheet that you feel best describes you, just so I have a kind of way of planning your outlooks and stuff like that.
And it also helps us as players to kind of
think
review
about
it because they really do give it good examples in there of what a unscrupulous character might do.
Right, and that's what it was. Every single alignment came up with a full list of what the boundaries and limits of that character type was.
Yeah.
So, would they steal? Would they kill? Would they torture? Would they lie? Under what circumstances would they do these things?
Exactly.
So on that list was one called Diabolical. And Diabolical was what lines up to lawful evil in the typical Dungeons and Dragons spectrum of things. And honestly, I think for if you're gonna play an uplifting, sort of hopeful, non-gritty game, I am going to make the suggestion to all of you out there to give the lawful evil villain a try. So this is a villain with an honor code, and I know a lot of people really kind of get confused about what the evils and the things like that do. So we're talking a villain with an honor code here, okay?
Right.
Someone who fights in a particular way and finds things that are outside of that honor code to be unpalatable to them. Okay, so for instance, they will accept a surrender. I mean, they have no interest in killing for killing's sake.
No.
Killing you does them no good. You're an extra corpse on their hands, and
now they have to handle that.
And honestly, you're a living person who's probably just misguided enough to be put in opposition to them. And if you just saw things their way, you'd understand. You're not really half bad of a person. You're just on the opposite side, and they respect that.
Yeah.
You stand for your principles. So no, I'm not going to kill you.
Right.
It's a villain who spares innocence. Okay, so just because the player characters have run afoul of me, and sure, I may even acknowledge that I'm a villain, but that doesn't mean I murder women and children and,
I had a mother. I have a sister.
Exactly. Like these are people too. Like I'm trying to very aggressively improve the city through my own means, but that doesn't mean that I want to kill the people in it.
Correct.
I
have an agenda, that nothing more.
Exactly. Minimizes collateral damage.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, but for structures around him.
That's very expensive to replace.
Exactly.
I might get sued.
Not only even just out of personal concern, but just kind of in that same way of they acknowledge they may be evil, but they at least acknowledge that other people are due their own rights.
Right.
And destroying their property is just secondary to harming them directly.
Correct.
May take hostages, but will not torture or kill them.
Right.
Typically a means to an end.
Right.
I have taken possession of your beloved wife, and she will remain safe, but in my custody until you agree to my terms.
Yeah. It's just a chit.
Exactly.
But it's a respectful one.
She
is being taken care of. She's being fed and water.
Exactly. Yeah. Chances are she's being fed filet mignon.
Right. With champagne.
With champagne.
She may not be eating it because
I'm
she's
sure
terrified.
She's throwing it back at the villain.
Right.
And going, I don't need your charity. And he said, very well, your next meal will be served in 4 hours,
Yeah. I'm sure you'll be hungry by then.
You are of course welcome to join me in the dining hall when you are prepared.
Exactly, and that's a way to handle it. It's like he's not trying to turn them necessarily. He's trying to be respectful.
Because she's a person.
Yeah.
Let's hear a villain who, if you lose your family's ancient heirloom sword while fighting them, will return it to you out of professional courtesy.
I mean, it's the I dropped my sword. And they pick it up and they pass it back to you and say, "Shall we continue?"
I've never seen a finer blade.
Yes, it's balanced exceptionally well.
May do a couple moves with it, like, wow, yeah, that's definitely going to hurt if you hit me with that.
Princess
and
Bride
hands it back to you. Yes,
yeah. Can you give me a minute? Of course, take your time.
Yes.
I mean, this is that whole scene where they're before the duel, during the duel, and at the end of the duel. That he's just like, make it quick. I'd more likely shatter a stained glass window than
destroy an artist as yourself.
But since I can't have you following me, slams over the head. Now, funny, I'm going to throw this out there as an anecdote. If you don't realize this, the scene where Wesley gets hit over the head by Count Rogan is real. He actually hit, because every time you'd get close, because it's such a close shot on the top of his head, that they couldn't get it right. He couldn't get the angle right. They tried different camera angles, and there was nothing working. And he said, "Just hit me. It'll be fine. Just hit me." He hit him and knocked him unconscious.
Oh my God.
They had to take him to the hospital. It was a whole ordeal. So that shot and his reaction are 100% accurate.
I'm going to have to go back and watch that
It is terrifying when you realize that.
Oh, no.
He was so mortified, the actor, that it happened. He was like, he's like, that is what happens? So he didn't know. So understand that there are people that are behind these characters, and that your characters aren't mushroom, mustache twirling, murderous people with, who became, psychopaths at birth. Some villains are psychopaths. Not saying they're not.
Yeah. And we're not saying lawful evil villains can't be psychopaths, but they're cultured psychopaths that operate on a certain code with a certain nature, refinement, a level of refinement to them.
But everybody has places where they will stop, where they're no farther than this, because it's not an active thing, it's passive. Like, it's how they drive, it's how they talk, it's how they eat their food. It is what they do in their day-to-day. They're not making a conscious act of this person I'm killing today, but this person means a lot to me. Kind of a thing where I'm going to make an active decision to kill this person and then not think of it again. It is a willful act that is challenging just as much as the players deal with. So you have to think about those moments of like, really, where's that line drawn? So I know that seems weird to fit into an episode about hope.
Right.
But I think there is a certain sense that your villains can also believe that your heroes might be doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that they kind of support them in that sense. Like, I don't agree that what your cause, in the direction that you're taking to do it, but I can see what you're doing here, and it's going to mean a lot to these people. I wish you the best of luck.
Or even, I mean, very, very much that.
Yeah.
Or even just this is the third time you've run afoul of my plans, and I admire your heart and your spirit and the vigor with which you are standing by your own convictions. You are naive and misguided.
Yeah.
And I will definitely have to, I will definitely deal with you now.
Right.
For this transgression. But if only you could see things from my perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you turn that fire in your heart to helping me instead of hindering me?
Right. Yep. I mean,
it leaves options open when your villains aren't just murder machines.
Right.
And it also leaves a thing in here, and one of the other things that I kind of added to my list was redemption arcs.
Yeah.
If your villain is not a completely ravenous murder machine, maybe they can be brought to see your end of things.
And that is hopeful.
Maybe there is an option where your villain doesn't need to be a villain anymore. Yeah. Maybe the way you thwart your villain is by showing him how misguided he was and that your way is better.
Yep.
Not with swords, not with arrows, not with spells, laser rifles.
Right.
Tactical nukes, exterminatus.
Yep.
But by talking.
Yeah. By giving them that opportunity to grow.
Maybe they've never been given that opportunity before. And maybe your characters are the first to truly show them that option is open for them.
Right. I come back to bad villainy can still be a thing. If you never get a chance, it's funny to say this, but watch Phineas and Ferb and ignore what Phineas and Ferb do. And watch what Perry does with his side of the story. Because it's literally two stories in one show.
Yeah.
Doofenshmirtz is the worst villain ever. He's actually kind of a weird anti-hero who has an arc with Perry. And it's long and it's drawn out and there's a lot of little things that get involved with it. But it is very much that. It is a story of redemption. And he has a code and he has things that he'll do and he won't do. And it's funny, but he's very much that lawful kind of character in that sense. He has honor with Perry. It's funny sometimes what they do. A good example of it is they literally he's got a dehydrator. Basically, it dehydrates things.
Okay.
And I can't remember why he built it even, but of course Perry shows up. And I think that one of those times, instead of blowing the door down, Perry actually knocks on the door, and Doofenshmirtz goes, "Oh, it's very nice of you to actually use the door. Like, you didn't just blow a hole in my wall, which is very expensive, and the rent goes up every time you do it.
Right.
So I really do appreciate that. Please come inside." And so he goes through the whole monologue. They have a conversation. He goes, "Oh, is this where we're supposed to fight?" And then they start fighting naturally, And at some point, Doofenshmirtz is trying to shoot him with the dehydrator, and Perry gets the better of it, shoots Doofenshmirtz, and then Doofenshmirtz shoots him. And so they're just these husks of people,
raisins.
Doing the whole because they're so dry.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This isn't good. Do you want a glass of water?" And he goes and gets the glass of water. They sit down and they have some water and just kind of talk it out for a second. It's like, "Okay, are you good? Good." And then they go right back to fighting, right back to it. But it's that kind of a thing that seems ridiculous to us because when would that happen? And yet that is exactly it. That's a lawful character who's respecting his foe.
Yep.
Of why he's there.
I will see you your Phineas and Ferb.
Okay.
And I will raise you a Justified.
Okay.
Okay, so I warned you I was going to be opining on this a little bit.
That's fine.
So Justified is a show that played on FX for 6 seasons or so.
Okay.
And surprisingly few people I've ever talked to about this show knew of it.
Okay.
But it was beautiful, starring Timothy Oliphant.
Okay.
Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Timothy Oliphant plays Raylan Givens, who is a Kentucky U.S. Marshal.
Interesting.
And he grew up in this town, Harlan County, basically Harlan County of Kentucky, and it's up in the mountains. It's this like just podunk mining town that's just rife with just rednecks and drugs, basically.
Oh, all right.
And so I mean, those
sounds like a great place.
Those are his origins,
right?
It's like I said, it's a coal mining place, and so at age 19, he and a couple of his friends and stuff like that, of course, joined the mining companies because it's the only work in town.
Sure.
And they dug coal together. And Raylan eventually got out and joined the marshals and joined law enforcement in general. Ended up as a U.S. Marshal. Ended up out in Miami until some circumstances, the very beginning of the first episode, landed him being punished for something by being transferred back to
his
Kentucky.
Hometown. Oh, wow.
He works out of Lexington, but it's like right around the corner from Harlan County. So he's
close enough.
Frequently needs to do jobs out there.
Right.
And of course, old family, old acquaintances and whatnot. One of these old acquaintances is who ends up essentially being the big bad evil guy for the series.
Right.
Is an old school friend of his named Boyd Crowder.
Well, there's a name.
Played by the brilliant Walden Goggins.
Okay.
And Boyd, when you first meet him, is this just redneck Nazi, crazed ex-military guy. He was a powder man when they worked in the mines together.
Okay.
And so Raylan tells this little story about how he would, he'd go in, he'd set his charge, come out, shout fire in the hole, and, the whole thing would go up, and we'd go in and, pick up the pieces, basically. A little bit after he tells that story, we've got modern day Boyd Crowder shouting fire in the hole as he fires a rocket launcher into a church.
Gotcha.
And we go from there. Now, Boyd gets into all sorts of stuff. Okay. But throughout it, he's got this rivalry with Raylan. Mm-hmm. And they're constantly threatening to kill each other and, and I'm going to get you and you're going to get in and out of prison and whatnot. And constant thorn in Raylan's side from the law enforcement standpoint. But there are several moments where Boyd gets the better of him. And he's got him at his mercy. And Raylan essentially puts himself at the mercy of Boyd and just says, all right, Boyd, it's your game. We're playing. You're in charge. And he gets asked later, he's like, how did you know Boyd wasn't going to kill you? And he just looks him in the eye and just goes, we dug coal together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
it.
That's all you need to know about them.
Right.
Is that they have a bond.
Yeah.
And there is, at least just between them, for all the horrible things Boyd Crowder is.
Yeah.
They dug coal together.
Yeah.
And that right there is just a level of, I can at least respect him. Right. There's at least that one little glimmer of hope that somewhere deep down inside, he's that man that I went into that tunnel with and dug coal with.
Yeah.
You're
hopeful that everything will come out better. And that's what keeps going and why you keep doing what you're doing. Yep. No, I think it's beautiful. All right. So to close this up a little bit before we get to our next thing, I think NPC monologues is a good way, keeping your NPCs black and white so that not necessarily the villainy, but at least the base characters, not your obstacles or your challenges that are in the story, but keeping that black and white I think really helps people know and allows those people to
defines where the shadows are. So so in contrast, where the light is.
Yeah. And speaking of light, have events and description of those events be light. Like give them joy when they deserve it.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they don't. I mean, if they literally just slogged through a bunch of crap and show up in a town that they've been waiting to get to, instead of it being an immediate challenge in that town, let the town be so happy that they're there, that they showed up. That's half the thing. I mean, it's one of the best things ever is that when you step into a party and that you've been dreading going to or an event, and a lot of people who have anxiety feel the same way about this. It's like, I don't know if it's going to be, and you walk in the door and you get that, hey, and everybody's happy to see you and they're giving you hugs. You're like, okay, all right, I can do this.
I'm in a friendly place, yeah.
And that's a thing. I mean, even at work, getting that sometimes is enough to say like, yeah, today's going to be a better day because, I want to be here. And they want me to be here.
When Sean and I first started dating, we went to a party where I was basically going to meet like pretty much all of his friends. And I remember being very anxious about that because I was new to the whole scene and whatnot. So I was the one walking in with the anxious sort of feelings about me. And when we walked in, of course, nobody knew who I was because I was just on Sean's arm.
Right.
But everybody turned and was like, "Hey, Sean's here!
Yep.
All right, hey guys, Sean's here! Oh my God, Sean made it! This is so amazing!
Yep.
Hey, who's the girl?"
Exactly.
And immediately, like the first thing I knew was like, okay, you know what? If everybody likes him here, this can't be a bad situation.
Exactly.
We're in, So I'm instantly at ease.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And like one of the things that I like about 7th Sea in the system is reputation.
Yeah.
Your reputation precedes you. Your player can use that then.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you go into a situation, like maybe you're in a chase with like the Count's men and he's right on your tails, but you've been through these towns before. These people know you. So you spend a little reputation to change the rules. So like as a typical moment, you get that chance to have a couple of guys who are loading up a barn full of hay or barley or something like that on a second floor. As you ride through the barn, they push a few of the barrels off, hay bales off to knock over a few of the men and reduce the numbers. You could do that, and they cheer you on as you make it through. That's the kind of thing. I mean, there was literally a story I was reading about reputation, about this group that had gotten their reputation so high in an area.
Okay.
And the players had found themselves surrounded by the Count's men. And it was like, okay, this is going to be a knockdown, drag 'em out fight. And one of the players is like, nope. And like, what do you mean, nope? So the head of the Count's guard and the guardsmen are all henchmen and part of the villainy group. But there was somebody else there. There was the Count's advisor. And he's like, I'm going to spend one contact. Okay. The Count's advisor has alerted the town that we're here and that we're being surrounded and that this is the moment that we're going to be taken into custody.
Oh.
Okay. All the townspeople starts coming in through the woodwork. They're all silently up on, they're coming in through they're opening their windows. They're coming out on their balconies. Some people are coming up through the alleyways, and they're all just kind of just outside of all of the guardsmen who have their arrows knocked at you off their crossbows, their pistols aimed, their blades ready to go, the pikemen with their pikes tight to you just outside of the ring of yourself. Okay. What do you guys do? The Count's, and he says his monologue. He says like, do you surrender? No. We will never surrender to you or the Count. Okay. Roll initiative. Nope. What are you doing? I'm dumping all my reputation. What? The peasants are going to revolt. They're with us. How much do you have? I have 20 reputation to spend, which is the max you can have. They're like, anybody else? We're all spending. All of us.
Oh my God.
So they all spent their reputation, and they created a revolt in the city right there. And they were all, and literally, he was just like, what do they say? One of the peasants, a young man who's blind on a crutch, screams, one for all and all for one.
Oh my goodness.
And it was, the chant starts going through the crowd. Suddenly, the guardsmen start looking to their lefts and right at the people that they know in their own city.
Not
who
so
are
sure.
Literally getting closer and closer until finally, like, literally it's a scream and the people rush and the fight breaks out and suddenly the guardsmen are overwhelmed. The lead henchman who thought he had the upper hand is now on the run effectively, and the fight changes. It goes from a 50 brute fight with 2 henchmen to 2 henchmen and 5 guards that are standing near him, keeping them at bay. Now you're chasing him down. And the whole fight changes. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Because the other scene would have been them being captured and taken away.
All because they were just so loved by this town.
They set their reputation in that, but they spent it all in one knot to make that happen. And I thought it was like, that is great storytelling from the player's perspective.
Yeah.
And the storyteller's like, let's do this thing.
This is happening.
Let's make this happen.
Here's how it unfolds for you.
And that's the thing about planning and having players who have a creative mind, who look at their sheets and go, this is what we can do. And that's hope. That's another way of turning things around, is that, you're building it with those people and it has an effect. And just because 7th Sea has that as part of their system, it doesn't mean that other systems like older D&D had followers that you could get. You can do these kinds of things in other systems as well. So think about that.
Yeah.
And of course, your redemption arc I loved.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know because the way we're doing this, we don't have questions this week. So sorry, guys. We may have tricked you a little bit, but the reason we don't have questions is that we didn't have time to fit them into this on when we were needing to do this recording, because we wanted to have time with our family.
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
Kind of is one of the things I want to talk about here at the end with the extra time we have, is that, like, it's a time to be thankful and to think about that stuff. And I think it's really neat over the years how things have happened with gaming. I've met a lot of wonderful people through gaming.
Oh, absolutely.
And thank you, Kate. Kate's actually going to join us in this discussion a little bit here. So she's given us the 20-minute warning, but
she's doing it by waving her phone with. She's Googled an image search for the number 20. So there's like a bunch of street signs with 20 on them and stuff like that, and she's just waving it at
pen. I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. We just need to get you a whiteboard that you could write on.
Ooh,
I will totally do that for you. When I was,
our Christmas, gift giving episode.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. We'll have to do that. So, before we get too far into this, Kate has an announcement.
Kate,
we're going to give you a little second.
We're going to talk a little bit about what we're thankful for. So we'll let you open the floor here. What are you thankful for?
Well, me and my fiance are expecting. I'm due next week.
Oh, next week?
Next week?
Yep.
How's this going to work
Wednesday?
out?
Well, he's already been delivered. His name's Jack.
Aw.
And he's a boxer lab mix and the cutest puppy ever.
All right. That is amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Is this your first?
We're excited. Yes.
Okay. Like, you didn't have cats or anything else with your fiance?
No. We actually had adopted a dog before, a rescue dog. And unfortunately, there were some circumstances where he did end up having to be put down after about a month.
That happens.
Poor guy ended up having a condition. He was in way too much pain.
That happens.
So not much we could do. We tried, but
hey,
so
you were still a good. You were still a good mom, and it's right. And we've seen pictures. Quite adorable.
Yeah.
Quite big.
He has a real smile. I can't handle it. It's that boxer face.
She's got this picture on her phone where I swear this dog is grinning at the camera.
It really is. It is.
He is. It's his floppy little lips get stuck on his teeth, so he just smiles all the time.
All right. Well, we are very, very happy for you. And we hope to hear lovely tales about it in the future. We might do
photos.
I think we might have to do stories from Kate on occasion about the dog. Yes. People are going to want to know about the dog.
Kate's dog episode. This is now Kate's dog podcast.
I've already decided whenever you guys email me with questions or anything, my only response from now on is just going to be pictures of my baby. We're just going to okay, but can you answer the questions? Just be like, no,
another dog picture.
This answers everything.
She's just going to meme us dogs. That's what it's going to be. Her dog in memes. It's going to be great.
Exactly. I already have this planned.
So going back to doing gaming, and I know you said you've never done role playing, Kate.
Absolutely not.
But you have done board gaming with people in the past.
All the time.
Right.
I continue doing child board games as an adult. We would get together and have whiskey, cigar, and board game night.
Yeah, I think the level of board game doesn't matter.
Shots and ladders.
Hell yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
So when it comes to gaming, I met a ton of my friends through this. And it's weird to say it, but through LARPing, through doing tabletop and stuff like that, I've gotten to know people and build some very, very strong friendships.
Yeah.
Like I met you through gaming
did?
when you were invited to one of our games, and it wasn't even a question because I already had that trust with the person that I'd been gaming with. Like somebody who had been coming to my house that I'd known forever said, "Hey, is it okay if I invite this person over?" Like you see the stories of, in movies and stuff where it's just like, "Hey, I'm bringing this person to gaming." Like that doesn't happen in life.
Right.
It's usually a discussion.
Yeah.
Like tabletop nights, you might a friend might come by and join and watch, or a wife or something like that, but it's rare for someone to say, "My buddy Bill's going to be coming with me tonight." You're like, "Who the fuck is Bill?" There goes our monetizing. It's just gone out the door. Sorry about that. But like that doesn't happen in reality. Everybody's usually, especially if it's somebody groups that you've been with, they're usually like, "Hey, is it okay if Bill comes by tonight?" And I think that's a key difference.
Well, who's Bill? How long have you known him? Oh, I've known him for ages. Okay, cool. Then
you haven't talked about him ever, Is this Bill from Canada? I mean, come on. Like, what's going on?
You wouldn't know him.
Exactly.
He goes to a different school.
Yeah, I mean, but usually these people, and I think that's one of the intimate things about gaming, whether it's even board gaming and stuff, is you're inviting people to your home, or you're going to someone's home.
Yeah.
It's rare that you go to like a convention center. I mean, that's a different environment. I'm going to flat out say that. That's different.
Right, but it's not still the norm,
No, but it still creates a level of intimacy even there. Like when I was playing at Gen Con, like I got to know the other people I was gaming with.
Yeah,
we got to be friends. And even just for those minutes, because we had to understand where we were coming at and the angles. Like when you're playing board games, at a certain point, especially in the co-op games like I was just thinking of one, Pandemic and things like that, where you're all trying to get to a goal. You kind of know the mind frames of the people you're playing with because you've played other games with them.
Dirty and inappropriate.
Well, yes, but also competitive, and things like that, where you're like, okay, I know this person's competitive, but I also know they're really good at rules. So I'm going to find out from them how I'm supposed to do this thing here.
Who at the table is going to have the aggressive game style, the conservative game style,
Exactly.
So,
Thank you. So I think that about gaming is really thankful for me because it kind of gave me that view of people.
Yeah. I think going back to being introduced to you through gaming, it's definitely a memorable moment in my life. I was going through a lot at the time too, and so I think, my gamer friends, especially the gamer friends that I have now around my table, are really truly the core of my found family. So I'm gonna say that I'm thankful about two things as far as gaming goes here.
Okay.
I'm gonna get a little deep if that's cool.
You could today is a day of hope and deepness.
All right, so. I was introduced to you guys, like you said, through a mutual friend who brought me to your house. And I know I've told you this story before, quite frankly, and that I was almost a little weirded out.
Okay.
When I first came over because you and your wife were just so welcoming. Like you genuinely have some real old-fashioned values about hospitality.
Yeah.
And so you were like, my house is my fortress, and you are welcome here. If you need anything, I will see to your needs. Very, and if anybody ever impugns, your safety here, they will deal with me.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
It's been an understanding in my home.
Okay, and upon meeting, I was embraced, not just welcomed, but embraced.
Yeah,
and it felt it was a little overwhelming at first because I'd never felt that sort of open kinship with someone before. And it's something that still, when I go over to your place, I still feel.
That's wonderful.
That your house is kind of a sanctuary for me, where I just know that I'm always welcome, and it's just a real place of peace for me because you have established that sort of thing. And because there's so many happy memories there, honestly.
Oh God, yeah.
We've spent a lot of time just BSing. You've got your rock band set up,
yes.
Which is pretty epic.
It's fun.
Many a nights there, many a bottle of wine.
Yes.
And many a night of gaming with either of us, honestly, behind the storyteller screen.
Yeah, very much so.
And who the people that I met at your place,
right,
through you, through our mutual friends and such like that, have really, like I said, become the core of my found family. And so I'm thankful for that primarily.
Oh.
But also, like I said, I mentioned I was going through a lot when we first met.
Right.
Going through a lot of life changes. So to share a bit about myself that I don't often make terribly public is that I'm transgender. And when we met, I had not yet transitioned.
Nope.
In fact, I'm not even certain I was at the point where I wanted to yet or felt that I needed to. I think I was still figuring a lot of things out. And so not only am I thankful for you and your house and and our mutual friends being setting a welcoming environment for me to make those changes in my life
right.
Without judgment and with nothing but love and support, honestly. I remember when I came out to all of you guys, there was never a question, never a what does that mean? It was like your first thoughts were never for you. It was for me. It was like, how can I support you in this trying time, you know? So I'm very thankful for that. But to kind of bring it back around to gaming, I'm very thankful for role-playing games, for allowing me to explore that in a safe space.
Yeah.
My wizard in your game, Ravana.
Yes.
I actually played her in one other game before that.
Right, you had said that.
Before I ever transitioned.
To get used to your character.
Because she was the first female character I ever played to try on what it felt like to be a woman in a social situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of it gave me a very safe place to express these things and figure a lot of things out, honestly, without outside consequence beyond some die rolls and paper.
Right, right. And I think that's one of the things that I really do like about gaming in general is that it gives you that availability to put on a mask and try a role, you know, without having to, you know, be an actor and have a whole stage and pre-designed lines and things like that.
Yeah.
Nor does it feel like it has to be something kink related.
Right,
you know?
right.
So, which I think a lot of people immediately think of when they think of role playing, you know, in the general thing, but it gives you that grace and that agency to be able to do that. Like I was saying just before we started cast, I played in another 7C game, second edition game. I came in as a new character to an existing group, and I decided that I was going to play a Montaigne fop, a courtier, who was clearly gay. You know, or bi, or something. Open, but exceptionally open with himself, with his socials, because he was a socialist.
But at least someone who had a romantic entanglement with men.
Yes, with everyone. I think he was an equal opportunity. He probably wouldn't care as long as, you know, you'd wonder if his
I feel that, man.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea was that I wanted him to be exceptionally open because he was a very contact-driven character, both in the sense that he knew everyone. Like, no matter what party he went to, there would be at least two people there who knew him and liked him, and probably the invite was to him and not you.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest. Like, you are his +1, never the other way around. I don't care who you are, what principality you're from, you're his +1.
Right.
You know, his name is first at the door, yours is second, because the doorman knows him both from parties and from parties. So like literally the very first game that I was in, you can set kind of the tone of how you want to play out your actions. So I was meeting them mid-chase. And as they're getting rid of, you know, Rona, I'm supposed to be meeting up with this princess or prince who's there, and she's rarely where she should be. And I'm like, wait a second, I can see her outside of court. I might be able to actually have a conversation with her. So I go riding up, you know, and they're in this chase. And I stop them for a second. Of course, here comes the count's men.
Like,
it's like, we finally caught you. And I'm just like, well, don't you look dapper? And I immediately took control of the scene as the contact support character and rode up to this henchman. It was just like, you are all dressed so well. Your uniforms are perfectly pressed. I mean, gentlemen, this is clearly not the type of race that we're on. And he's like, you wouldn't just ride down upon a prince like this, would you? Well, I mean, you'd give us at least 2 minutes of ride, just so I can have my conversation. very well. And we literally turned and started trotting away. And I'm like, you're such a, you're such a cad. And like,
ain't you a peach?
And so we ride through, we do this whole chase. We get down to the docks, and literally they're like, there are three choices. There's a merchant ship that is sitting here waiting, still being loaded. There's a second ship that's lighter, you won't be able to carry. And the third ship is literally pulling away. And one of the players is like, I'm making my horse jump for that ship. Okay, everybody give me a ride check. Now, most of the party, not adept riders. So as they're making the ride checks, they make one success, which means they make it, but the horse does not. And they're barely making it out of the horse. Like, the one other character makes it, and of course I make my ride check, which I'm great at because I'm a courtier, and land gracefully on the boat with my horse and slightly, slide off. And they're like, great, you make it on the ship. All the hands on the deck are staring at you like, what the heck's going on? The captain comes walking up, and I'm spending what? I know him. What? Carnally. Oh. And of course they're like, Prince, you and your men are... Roderick? What are you doing with them? Oh, we're old hands. I need to get taken across to... Where are we going again? And of course, I had no idea where they were going. They give me someplace. We're going here. We'll talk. And he's like, okay, so what's everybody doing on the ship? And like, well, most of the players were down in the whole, space that they were able to give them, talking about other things. And they're like, where are you, Roderick? I'm with the captain. Okay, give me are you guys having dinner? I'm naked in his bed with just a sheet hanging over me. Oh, yeah, I'm getting a safe passage.
Yes.
The conversation goes as thus, and we just started talking, and that was it. And it was a character style that I had never even remotely explored. And the players freaking ate it alive. Other players like, you're totally part of our game. We love this. You're great. You're fantastic. Let's roll with this. But it was just, I don't usually play support characters, and this was a very crazy support character. But it gave that agency to just have some fun with it and do something crazy.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one of the things about it, that gaming kind of is therapy a little bit. It's therapeutic. And when you need it, it can be there to be a release. It can be there to be a distraction. I mean, I can't imagine Kate sitting here doing the nod. I'm sure there's been a couple board games.
I mean, I drink in the shower. That's what I do.
Is it like a sippy cup or like a straw?
No, it's one of those double-walled freezer mugs.
Ooh.
The frosty mugs, although I'm super sad, it accidentally got put in the freezer with water still in it, and it cracked on the side, and I'm devastated. I taped it. It will live for a few more showers.
Okay.
First off, Gorilla Glue is amazing for that.
Duct tape, yeah.
It's so far apart.
Again, putty can fill that. A little bit of Gorilla Glue.
There we go.
So, but I think it's changed a lot of people's social awareness. I think it's changed because I've definitely gamed with people who do not meet my social and political beliefs and religious beliefs, but none of that is brought to the table. We're somewhere else. We're someone else at times. I mean, it comes out in how they play, and sometimes there are questions about certain things, but none of it is. It's not adversary. Sure. We can just enjoy a lot of time. You'll hear it in people who do like baseball and football. Is that once you're in the game, it doesn't matter. You're on the same team.
Yeah.
And I think that does it.
I will say, as an outsider, I can absolutely appreciate that this game has the ability where everyone has all these characters, and you get to make your own choices along the way.
Yeah.
It's not just you roll a dice and what happens to you and you deal with it. Like, you get to actually interact. And to me, that is fascinating.
Which is why you're still here in the room 9 times out of 10 when we're doing these. I watch all the other engineers leave their cubes when they're doing it, but you stick around with us, and I
have to say, I would like to say that I am grateful that in this job opportunity that I do get to know and actually meet decent clients that I work with, like you guys. Like, I feel like we're actually friends.
Yeah, totally.
I enjoy seeing. I look forward to seeing you and your show every week. I like chatting with you guys. I'm glad you get here early so we can talk.
You're also glad we're prepared, but
oh my gosh, you guys have your stuff together. You listen. Like, it's amazing. We communicate well, but I am so thankful for opportunities like this where I get to meet and I get to learn new knowledge that I never would have known about before.
Yeah.
Like, I might not ever get, in there to play a game myself. I don't know if I can do that confidently. Maybe. I don't know. You guys are gonna...
I don't think confidence is it. We might eventually get you the T-Rex into this game.
We ran a
whole... I will only do it in my T-Rex suit.
That's fine.
We may not get you into an existing long campaign or something like that, but we did a whole show on one shots, Kate, and
we may end up making you like do an excerpt show of a one shot with you.
We just get you for an evening.
You know what? We can do that.
Yep.
Yeah,
I will do that. We will try. We will have some fun.
I have a funny feeling it's going to be titled "One Night in a Tavern."
Actually,
Kate
that's
story.
Perfect for me.
Yep.
Everywhere I go is a tavern.
The storyteller sets the scene, so no shit, there you are.
She did a lot of constitution checks. A lot of constitution checks. Oh. So, yeah, I think it's been a good run for 30 shows. I think we've learned a lot. I think I've been thankful about that for our story is that like I've done a lot of research. I've had a lot of fun. I've learned a lot with what we've been doing, not just in podcasting, but just having to do this week in and week out. It's a faithful friend coming to this room, this space.
It is. It's a great. I look forward to our Wednesdays still after 30 episodes, and it's just. I think it's only getting better. I am right back at you. Thankful for Kate,
very much so,
being here for us because, like I said, like you said, I feel like we are friends.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
we have really good chats. We have Rob and I always have dinner right before we come over here.
We do,
and then we usually roll in about 6:20 or so. So we've got about 40 minutes to kill. At least sitting in the lobby, or maybe just if the room is open, if Studio 4 is open, we come in here, and we'll just be us around the microphones.
We're funny people.
Like a
enjoy our
therapy session.
Today was 40 minutes of dog pictures.
Absolutely,
100%.
I may have almost teared up 5 times.
Absolutely
I just want to squish
it.
his cheeks.
I wish you could all see how happy she is about this dog. It's infectious.
We will tell you.
Infectious.
It's my baby
on the next show. But please do not just flood the questions channel with what does the dog look like? Can we get pictures of the dog? Has the dog done anything?
Can we get him like a little D&D bow or something? He can be your guys' mascot.
I have one. I never use it because it looks terrible on me. I will bring you it.
Oh my gosh,
Robert,
you
need to give that to her now.
I will bring you that one.
He can be your new mascot. It's perfect.
Oh,
so excited!
We at
about
least
this
need a picture of
idea right
that.
now.
That has to go on our Instagram. All right, I will bring
so
you that.
Excited
I will
about
bring
this
you
right
that
now.
next show. All right, so our next show actually is on environmental storytelling, and that's using the environment in the story, and we'll be talking about how what that effect has on gaming and actually in storytelling itself. And I think there's a lot of parts of this that I really need to learn more about because I don't think I use it nearly enough.
Oh yeah, I'll have some opinions on that one. So if you are shocked at opening the thing and getting 3 pages of writing, I'm sorry in advance.
It's perfectly fine. I think we're going to need it either way. Hit us up with that extra if you don't mind. You can find us on Twitter at @ST_conclave or Instagram on @ST_conclave. Our Discord link is always in our Twitter with the episode description. Please join us there. You can also find us on Patreon at Storyteller Conclave.
Big shout out to Knox in the Box for supporting the show. Thanks
Knox.
so much. Our intro music is Bumbling by Pictures of the Floating World. You can find that on freemusicarchive.org. Our outro music is Love, Generosity by Vortex. You can also find that at freemusicarchive.org.
Our podcast is done here at Podcast Detroit with Kate, our engineer. You can find them at podcastdetroit.com and Twitter at Podcast Detroit. Maybe you'll come in one day and do one of their free podcast days. It's really fun, and I think you should give it a try. But we'd like to really thank everyone. Like everybody. Gary Gygax and the rest of the crews. And like John, who put together 7C. It made my world wonderful. Our friends, our families.
Kevin Simbedia.
Oh, God, yeah.
Let's see here. John Stackpole.
Totally.
Sorry, not John Stackpole. Michael Stackpole.
Thank
Gosh,
you.
how did I mess that up?
That's all right.
Well, I'm thanking him. I'm getting his name wrong. But all the people who've made all these great games and have brought us together and really brought us this whole podcast and
the world.
Really kind of forged who we are, honestly, as people. So thank you to the entire gamer community.
Yeah.
To our families, Vicky and Sean, as always.
Always.
All of our friends, and you, our listeners. We love you very much.
Very, very much.
Have a very happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Don't eat too much. Good. All right. Talk to you soon.